everybody, welcome back to another Ashley's Animal Academy podcast video. Today we are going to be talking about body language in dogs so that way you can identify and read your dog's body language to help you understand what your dog might be thinking or what they might be motivated by. It is important when reading body language to make sure that you're reading the whole body, not just one particular body part, because there can be some conflicting messages if you're just looking at one body part. So making sure that you're reading the whole body is going to be super important, but today we're going to do a head-to-tail assessment so that way you can see those different cues. So the first body part that we're going to look at is the head. So again, you're going to want to look at the full head when you're reading your dog's body language, but we're going to break it down into different parts. So this guy doesn't have eyes, unfortunately, but we're going to start with the eyes. Really what you want to look for in the eyes is how much tension they're carrying and which direction they're facing. So if you have a dog who is neutral and soft, their eyes aren't carrying any tension, they're not wide open, and they're not really squinted shut, then you know that you have a comfortable dog. If your dog's eyes are wide open and facing directly at something, they're probably a little bit more on alert. They're probably gaining a little bit of arousal. If you're seeing a whale eye, which is that side half moon eye where they're kind of giving you a little bit of side eye, then your dog is likely stressed out, a little bit anxious, a little bit worried about something. So you want to be making sure that you are giving them that space. The next body part we're going to talk about is the ears. So if you see on this guy, he has nice floppy ears. Some dogs might have ears that stand up and are triangle shaped, but you really want to look at your own dog and what their standard ear is going to be. As long as they're in that standard neutral position and aren't carrying any crazy tension, they're nice and wiggly, they're moving around freely, then you know your dog is comfortable. If your dog's ears are pointed more forward, more directed at a trigger, then you know your dog is starting to gain a little bit of arousal. This is especially true if their eyes are also fixated on a specific spot. If your dog's ears are pressed back against their head, think that that's a really good position to protect their ears in, and they're starting to feel a little concerned about whatever is in the environment. So again, making sure you're paying attention to your standard dog's ears, whether they're straight up normally or floppy normally. And if they're pointing forward, that means that they're more aroused. If they're pointing back, they're more upset, concerned. The next thing you want to think about is the mouth. So again, this guy doesn't really have a mouth, but if your dog's mouth is open, loose, not carrying any tension around the creases, then you know that your dog is nice and happy and content. Of course, content dogs can have closed mouths too. You just want to make sure that their general body language is loose and wiggly in those positions. If your dog's mouth is closed and kind of pinned shut and forward facing, then you know that your dog is starting to get more aroused, a little bit more on alert. If your dog's mouth is tight and open, I always call it the Joker smile. They've got it pulled back at their sides. Then your dog is starting to become a little bit stressed or over-aroused in a more concerned way rather than a more alert and dominant way. Of course, if your dog is showing teeth, that is a fair warning to stay away from that dog and give that dog space. You might just see a little lip curl, you might see those teeth being pulled out, or you might see an actual air snap going on. And all of those are signals to give your dog space, that your dog is very aroused, very stressed, and needs some space. The next thing we're going to talk about is your dog's posture. So again, you want to make sure you're looking at your breed standard. Some dogs naturally lean back a little bit into those hind legs like German Shepherds or Boxers. Some dogs stand forward a little bit more naturally due to their breed standard. But you want to look at your breed standard and then the relative position from there. So if your dog is leaning more forward into those front legs and they're carrying a lot of tension in their body, then you know that your dog is highly alert, highly aroused, and starting to fixate on something in the foreground. If your dog is leaning more backwards and kind of heeling down, tucking everything under, your dog is starting to feel concerned, stressed, or fearful about something. So forward is more arousal, more alert. Backwards is more fearful, stressed, concerned. So finally, we're going to look at your dog's tail. Again, look at your breed standard. Some dogs have curly tails, some dogs have tails that stick out a little bit more, and some dogs' tails hang nice and low. So look at your standard for your breed and then judge relative position from there. The more tension your dog's tail is holding upwards, the more alert your dog is. And again, if you match that with the body language pointing forward, the eyes facing forward, those ears pinned forward, you know your dog is on high alert, highly aroused. If your dog's tail is tucking under in that protective way, their body is leaning backwards, their eyes are giving you a little side eye, and those ears are pressed against their head, you know that they're starting to feel concerned, stressed, or fearful about something. So you can also look at the way that your dog's tail is wagging. If your dog's tail is held neutral to their standard position and their entire body is wiggling along with that tail, might be making these big sweeping motions like a windshield wiper, then you know your dog is happy and neutral. If your dog's tail is held up in that alert, aroused position and wagging very, very minorly, very, very quickly, then you know your dog is alert, aroused. If your dog's tail is hanging low and very slowly wagging or very quickly wagging, then you know that your dog is starting to feel stressed, concerned, overwhelmed about something. In conclusion, you want to look at all of your dog's individual body parts, compare them to the breed standard, think about if they're pointing more forward and tense or if they're backwards and tense. The more forward, the more aroused your dog is, more alert your dog is. The more backwards, the more stressed, fearful, concerned your dog is. We want ideally to have a dog who's nice and loose and wiggly, standing in their standard posture, and keeping all of those body parts nice and loose. Again, just to remind you, we're not just looking at the eyes, just looking at the ears, or just looking at any particular body part. We want to make sure we're reading the whole story. Right. Thank you for joining us for another Ashley's Animal Academy podcast video all about body language. Next month, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about some of the social signals your dog may be saying with their body. But if you have any questions about this video, you can leave them in the comments below, give us an email, shoot us a text, and we will add them into our next podcast.